everyone, this is Manohar Reddy, Department of Cybersecurity, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today I am going to explain you the concept of comparison of web threat. So how we are going to compare the different types of threats available on web. So how we are going to identify them and how we are going to face them by exploit them with the different mechanisms and with the different techniques. So here the concept of problem solving and comparison of web threats. So before that, going to be understand that web threats, what is meant by web and how it relates to the different types of threats. So introduction to the web. The World Wide Web is fundamentally, it's a client server application running over the internet under TCP/IP intranets. So the World Wide Web indicates that what a client server application. It states that a client server application. That indicates that a user gives a query, and the server gives a response. So the World Wide Web shows the information which the user requested. So here, the general requirements of web security and then focus on three standardized schemes that are becoming increasingly important as part of web commerce and that focus on security at the transport layer and application layer. So the standardization schemes, so which are implementing for the World Wide Web security, against different types of threats. So what are those three standardized schemes that we are using to identify the different types of threats? So there are SSL or TLS is one, and the second one is HTTPS is one, and SSH, Secure Socket Hash Authentication. So these are all different standardized schemes that we are going to use for the web threats or comparisons of the web threats. So the security tools and approaches suggest the need for solving the issues of the web security. So how we are going to solve the issues related to the web security means we have to use all the requirements. These are the general requirements of the web security. So what we need to do for the solving the issues of web security means web servers are relatively easy to configure and manage. So we need to configure and manage web servers is very easily. So configure and manage web servers is to be securely or relatively. So configuration of web servers and managing of web server is to be done very relatively or securely. And the web content is increasingly easy to develop so that the underlying software is extraordinarily complex. So we need to provide an additional layer of security for that all increased data. For all that increased data, we have to provide an additional layer. We have to provide an additional security layer for web, because of the day-to-day life easy to develop. There are a lot of web data is available. So to manage that all the things is very complex. So to maintain that all the data is to be secure, we have to provide an additional layer of security for that web. So here the web servers and the web browsers are some tools to manage all the traffic on the web, to maintain and manage the data. So web browsers and web servers are some sort of tools that manages all the traffic of the web to maintain and to manage the data. So web is nothing but all the data which contains both maintenance as well as management. So all this data, how it is going to be managed by the tools called web server and web browser. So web browsers gives the response by the web servers, and web browsers also gives the queries to the web servers. So user requested query through web browser. So web browser gives that query to the web server, and web server gives a response to the web browser based on the query which you are asking. Based on the query which you are asking. And here, how the security threats are actually categorized. So there are two ways the security threats are categorized, and the security threats against web indicates that attacking different types of attacks. So here, one way to group these threats in terms of passive and active. So there are two types of attacks are there. There are two types of attacks. So related to the web, one is passive attacks and the second one is active attacks. One is passive attack and the second one is active attack. The name indicates that passive is nothing but the attacks are not attacked directly to the target system, but active attacks are targeted on the target system by directly. So passive attacks are not attacked directly to the target system, but active attacks are directed to the attacks of the system, target of the system. So here, the passive attacks includes what? Eavesdropping on the network traffic between browser and server. So how the data is flowing between browser and server, and how the response is coming from server and browser, and how the data is flowing in between the browser and server is nothing but a gaining access of the information on website. So that is supposed to be restricted. So if anybody wants to access that all the data is not able to access by directly, they can use some sort of tools. They can use some sort of tools to use that information. The second one, active attacks. Active attacks includes impersonating another user. So they are directly contacting to the other user, or they are directly contacting to the other system and altering messages in transit between client and the server. So they can impersonate the messages or the system and the information on website also. Altering the information on website also. So active attacks are directly attacked on the target system. Passive attacks are not directly attacked on the target system. So another way to classify web security threats is in terms of the location of threat. So based on the location of threat, also web security threats can be defined. So here, web server, web browser, and network traffic between browser and server. Network traffic between browser and server. So how it manages to provide the security against threats. How it manages to provide security against threats, and how the threats are going to be attacked on the target system. So issues of server and browser security fall into the category of the computer system security. Either it is a computer security or either it is a system security, and also applicable to web security. And issues of traffic security fall into the category of network security. So the traffic flow issues related to the transmission, issues related to the traffic flow of the data is fall under the category of network security. Server and the browsers are related to the system security and also applicable for web security. So like the way the web security threats can be categorized in both passive and active way. Some of the attacks are attacked on the target system in direct position, and some attacks are attacked on the target system by indirect position. So indirect position is nothing but they can use some sort of tools or some sort of messages, some sort of principles, anything. So here the comparisons of threats on web. So what are the different types of threats available on the web, and what are the consequences that we are facing about the threats? and related that consequences, how we are going to countermeasure the threats. So here the first one is what? Integrity threats. So based on the services offered in the PGP, based on the services offered by the web, the threats can be divided in 4 types. The threats are divided into 4 types. First one is what? Integrity threats. First one is what? Integrity threats. And the second one is what? Confidentiality threats. Second one is what? Confidentiality threats. And third one is what? Denial of service threats. Denial of service threats. And the fourth one is what? Authentication threats. Authentication threats. So these are all the threats that are happen in the web against different web security services. So here the first one is what? Integrity threats. First one is what? Integrity threats. So integrity threats can impersonate the modifications of user data. Modifications of user data, and it uses Trojan horse browser. It uses Trojan horse browser, and it does modifications of the memory. It is going to be do that modification of memory also, and modification of message also. Modification of message traffic in transit. Modification of message traffic in transit. So if integrity threats occur in the web, these are all the threats will be occurred. So what are those? Modification of user data. In Trojan horse browser, the browser is handed out by another virus tool, and the modification of memory, and the modification of message traffic in transit. Message traffic in transit. So what are the consequences against these integrity threats? What are the consequences against these integrity threats? If all these threats occur, what are the consequences we are going to face in the real time? So the first one is what? Obviously loss of information. Obviously loss of information. And the second one is what? Compromising of mission. Compromising of mission. That is nothing but hand over our responsibilities to the virus or attacker. And the next one, vulnerability to all other threats. Vulnerability to all other threats. So this is the consequences that we are facing against integrity threats. To face all the consequences threats, to face all these consequences, we are going to use some sort of countermeasures. We are going to use some sort of countermeasures, and that countermeasure is cryptographic checksums. Cryptographic checksum, that is nothing but applying encryption and decryption. Applying encryption and decryption. So applying encryption and decryption process to the data or to the transmission or to the files. And the second one, confidentiality threats. Second one, confidentiality threats. So here the confidentiality threats occurs for eavesdropping on the internet. That is nothing but a data leakage, where the data is flowing from source to destination. Data is flowing from source to destination. And the second one, theft of information from server. Theft of information from server. So there is a chance to lose the data during the transmission of flow, and from the server also. And theft of data from client also, because the client and the servers can able to transfer their data, right? So at that moment, the theft of data by some attackers, like a man in the middle attacks. So at that moment, the confidentiality threats occurs. And information about network configuration. Information about network configuration. And also information about which clients talk to server. So how the client is going to be contacted to the server with the help of some messages, how the messages are all having to forward the information. So because of these confidentiality threats occur, the consequences we are facing is what? Obviously loss of information. Obviously loss of information. And the second one, loss of privacy. Loss of privacy also there. So loss of privacy. So that means indirectly you are going to exhibit your information to other users. So lack of confidentiality occurs. for this countermeasure, for these consequences, we are going to use countermeasures as encryption process. And the second one is what? Web proxies. Applying web proxies. So applying web proxies also one type of countermeasure. Applying web proxies. Web proxies also it is a countermeasure. It is a countermeasure. And third one, denial of service threats. Denial of service threats. So by occurring this denial of service threats, the killing of user threats. So user runs different programs. User runs different programs. For all the programs, different types of threats are running. For all the programs, different types of threats running. So killing of all that user threats. Killing of all the user threats. Flooding machine with bogus requests. Flooding machine with bogus requests like ICMP floods. ICMP floods. So what they are doing, they are sending a multiple flood of requests to the target mission or target mission with a bogus request. So at that moment, the target system can respond with any of the flood messages. So at that moment, the system is going to be handed over to the attacker. And filling up disk or memory. Filling up disk or memory. So by sending continuous floods to the target system, automatically the target system gets fill up. The target system gets filled and the memory will be full. Isolating mission by DNS attacks. Isolating missions by DNS attacks. So the each and every machine has to be separated because of this DNS spoofing attacks or DNS cache poisoning attacks. DNS spoofing attacks or DNS cache poisoning attacks. So what are the consequences that we are going to face against this denial of service attacks? So for this, the consequences are disruptive. Disruptive is nothing but disturbances of the threads or interruptions of the threads occurs. The next, annoying. Annoying is one type of consequences, and prevent user from getting work done. So prevent user from getting work done. So for these, all the types, the countermeasure is not at all having the perfect measure, but it is say that difficult to prevent for these all the types of threats. So but better to keep the system, is to be away from all that multiple flood requests, away from that all multiple flood requests. So better to keep the system away from multiple flood requests. So when you have it away from the multiple flood requests, automatically the flood requests cannot be reached to the system. And fourth one, authentication. So for these authentication threats, impersonation of legitimate users. That means the users are going to be lost their identity. Users are going to be lost their identity because of the threats occurs. And data forgery. If is the identified person, then the data which is for the user is going to be forged by another users. And the consequences. So consequences we are going to face by doing this misrepresentation of users. So instead of showing one user, we are going to show another user. That is nothing but misrepresentation of user. And believe that false information is valid. So believe that false information is valid. That means it is going to be showing the false information is true. It is going to be show that false information is true. For this, we are going to use countermeasures or cryptographic techniques. So we are going to use by generating different types of keys, key pairs, along with the different types of algorithms. So these are all the different types of threats that are available for the web, and the consequences we are going to face against the threats, and what are the countermeasures we are going to give to stop these threats, stop these integrity threats and confidentiality threats, and denial of service threats, and authentication threats. here from this point of view, one way to provide for this all the web threats, how we are going to overcome actually. So how we are going to overcome and how we are going to stop these all the threats do not occur in the web service. So for this moment, we are going to have some offers like we are going to some opportunities like providing additional security layers. Providing additional security layers. So what are the ways we are going to provide? So one way to provide web security is to use IP security. So one way to provide web security is to what? Use IP security. So IP security, applying IP security is an additional layer for internet protocol which helps to provide web security. So IP security is an additional layer of the protocol IP and which provides for web security purpose. So one way to provide web security used to IP security, the advantage of using this IP security is the transparent to the end users and applications. So it is transparent to the end users and applications and provides a general purpose solution. And the second one is what? Another relatively general purpose solution is to implement security just above TCP. So provide security above TCP layer. So after above TCP layer, how we are going to implement the solution in the form of additional layer, in the form of extra layer. So here, the foremost example of this approach is the security socket layer. So applying security socket layer is the additional layer or general purpose solution to implement security for this TCP. And the follow on internet standard known as transport layer security. So this is the general purpose solution. Above the TCP provides an extra security layer for the web security. And third one is what? Application specific security services. Application specific indicates that the each and every type of application is inbuilt with security. So for all the types of applications, we are implementing different types of services. So application specific security services are embedded within the particular application. So the advantage of this approach is that the service can be tailored to the specific needs of given application. So this advantage is for what? Advantage is for application. If it wants to change anything, then it can be tailored. To the specific needs of the application. So these are all the three additional extra layers that provides web security. There are three additional extra layers provides web security. So they are representing in the form of diagrams. So here the first one is what? Network level, second one is what? Transport level, and third one is what? Application level. So the first level, the network level, provide additional security for the network level, provide additional security for the transport level, and provide additional security for the application level. So one scheme is what? To provide IP security as a solution. In what layer? In network layer or internet protocol layer. So here the below TCP, the internet above network layer, it indicates that what? IP or IP secure. So IP secure indicates that what? It contains authentication header plus encapsulating security payload plus Internet Key Exchange, which contains all the services, So because of all these services are offered in the IP secure, so it maintains an additional extra layer as a web security, So it offered in the network layer. It is offered in the network layer. And the second one is what? A transport level. Provide security at the transport layer. So above transport layer. Provide security above transport layer. So the internet protocol, transport protocol, above this transport protocol, transmission control protocol, SSL or TLS has to be implemented. So here, this is the additional security service. Additional security service that we are implemented. About TCP layer, additional security layer, it is added that the name is what? SSL or TLS. That stands for what? Secure socket layer or transport layer security. So secure socket layer or transport layer security. So providing additional security layer above TCP is one type of security service that implemented. And third one is what? Application level, which provide security service for application specific. So each and every type of application is going to be specified with the type of security software. So here the Kerberos is one type of application specific software, and SMME is one type of application specific software. So it is one type of application security service which we are using for different types of applications. Like for Gmail applications, we are using one type of application service as Mailvelope or else Kerberos or else SIME or MME. So for each and every application has to be specified with the type of security service. It has to be verified with the type of security service. So all the types of security services are implemented with the specified type of applications. So these are all the three types of additional security layers that we are providing. So one way to provide web security is to what? Providing IP security and providing transport layer security, that is nothing but TLS or SSL above TCP, and application specific protocol, application specific security, implementing application specific security service, So based on the type of application, the security service has to be implemented. So all these three are providing an additional extra layer for the web security. So this is all about how we are going to provide an additional layer of security to the web threats. So the different types of web threats. So once we look up what we are revising this one. So once again we revise these topics which we discussed in this session. So here the problem solving of comparisons of the threads. So for that we have to understand what is meant by web and how the web data is going to be interacting with the user with the help of browsers and web servers. How they are going to be maintaining and managing the data. And the second one is what? Provides how they are going to provide security for the different types of threats. How you are going to provide security for the different types of threats. So what are the threats available? So types of threats. So passive attacks, active attacks. So passive threats, active threats. So here contains different types of threats available. So integrity threats, confidentiality threats, denial of service threats, and authentication threats. So integrity threats, confidentiality threats, denial of service threats, and authentication threats. So all the types of threats, what are the consequences we are facing against these threats? So consequences, loss of information, compromise of machine, vulnerability to all other threats, loss of information, loss of privacy, all these consequences we are facing. What are the countermeasures that we are going to implement against these consequences? So cryptographic checksums, encryption, web proxies, and cryptographic techniques. These are all some countermeasures that we are going to implementing against consequences. And to avoid that all the threats, to face all these threats, what are the ways we are going to provide security? So we are providing additional security to the web security with the help of some. One scheme is what, providing IP security, and the another scheme is what, to provide transport layer security above TCP, and third one is what, provide specific security for the application specific purpose, providing security for the application specific purpose. So these are all the additional layer of securities providing at the web security, providing at the web security. So implementing IP security in the network layer, and implementing SSL or TLS above the TCP layer, and implementing specific application related specific software, specific proxies or specific types of applications, all we are implementing for the application security purpose. So this is all about how we are going to understand the problem solving process of comparisons of threat, and providing some countermeasures, and providing some additional extra layer security for the comparisons of threats. So that's all about. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.